Welcome to the Writer Talks. As we all know, life is replete with its share of the strange, bizarre moments. It can also lend us the most buoyant experiences and an adrenaline rush like no other. Imagine that you are living and are part of this mystery, intrigue, action, and split-second decisions on lines of our beloved Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, or the dashing 007 James Bond at Her Majesty's service. Well, my guest today, George Yuhasz, an epitome of equanimity, grace, and poise, an ardent devotee of nature who lives in the serene environs of the Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina, has had a distinguished career as an intelligence officer. He is a former US government special agent who has been with the CIA. Now, before you work yourself up with dizzying visuals of dramatic encounters, let me tell you that George is one of the most quiet, measured, and calmest people I have come across. He's an avid nature enthusiast, passionate advocate in promotion and preservation of our natural world, a birder, a world traveler, and very significantly, a writer. George's very first and immensely successful novel, Imagine That, The Magic of the Mysterious Lights, is inspired by his granddaughter. The novel has won accolades, including the 2021 Firebird Book Awards, the Outstanding Children's Fiction Illustrated category, among several others. He is now working on two more books. One is a suspense novel, not surprisingly, and the second is a sequel to Imagine That. Let us dive in to watch this distinguished, gentlemanly writer, George Yuhasz, share his experiences both as a writer and as a former intelligence officer. Before that, I would like to share with you, all my viewers, that our energetic poet publisher, EC, or Isilia Yasrael, has launched her 4th annual poetry contest, and this year's theme is love. Last day to submit your poems is the 1st of June, and winners will be announced on the 1st of September. You will find the link with details about this great opportunity in the description section. If you're a poet, invoke the muse and pen on. Thank you all for such an overwhelming response to last week's video with Dr. Santosh Vakaya. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to the Writer Talks, and do encourage your friends to subscribe so that we can continue such literary engagements with brilliant writers from across the world. Do write in your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. I hope you enjoy watching George Yuhasz speak with me on the Writer Talks. Until next week, stay happy, read, write, reflect, and revel in the natural world. Ahoy! Ahoy! Welcome to the Writer Talks. We have with us the wonderful, distinguished George Yuhasz, all the way from Blue Ridge Mountains, North Carolina. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Asha. Great to be here. And I'll say your good evening and my good morning to you.
Thank you for that. And yes, good morning to you. Did I get your name right? George Yuhasz, I'm right?
You did it perfectly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What does Indians are always curious about meanings and about names and words. So what does Yuhasz actually mean? It's a surname.
Yes, thank you for that question. It means shepherd in the Hungarian language.
Oh,
and along with my first name, George, who was also a protector, Saint George, who slayed the dragon and was protecting the lady. And of course, my professional career, it kind of combines for an interesting trilogy.
Absolutely. I think your parents were prescient. They just knew that you would be an intelligence officer.
Well, I don't know about that, but when I decided to get into that career field, they at first they weren't very happy.
Right.
They were thinking of how dangerous it might be and that they might lose their son.
Naturally, yes. I mean, that they would be concerned. I can see that. You've had such a distinguished career as an intelligence officer, as a special agent for the US government. And I'm imagining James Bond all along in my head as I'm speaking, right? And then now you are an author, and your very first book, imagine that, has received such accolades. I think the book won the Outstanding Children's Fiction Illustrated category, as well as the 2021 Firebird Book Awards. What a fantastic journey it has been.
Well, thank you. It's been quite a journey indeed, and little did I know that just writing a children's book to celebrate my granddaughter would take on a life of its own. It's really been wonderful.
That's lovely to hear. Now, before we get to know more about you, your writing process, obviously your distinguished career, we definitely want to talk about your experiences as an intelligence officer. Not an opportunity one gets, on a daily basis. So I would definitely want to draw out some responses regarding that as well from you. But before that, let's dive into the first section. So since last week, I've started this new segment in the Writer Talks. It's called the Rapid Response section. So it's self-explanatory. So I'll be posing a set of questions to you, and you'll have to pick either of the two choices and give me a quick instinctive response. Your instinctive response is what is needed, and also briefly explain the reason behind your choice. Easy questions, right? But quick responses.
All right.
Ready? Okay, so here we go. So in the rapid response section, your first question is between birds and the big cats, which would you choose?
I choose birds because I'm an avid bird watcher. I love feeding them. There are feeders all over near my cottage, and I just enjoy nature and wildlife.
Lovely. I read about that, and that's the reason why that's my first question. I love bird watching too. I'm an avid bird watcher as well.
Oh, wonderful.
All right, now between Sherlock Holmes and Hercule Poirot, whom would you choose?
I would take Hercule Poirot because he seems to be confronted with very unusual circumstances. He has a great analytical mind, and he expects the unexpected. It's a quality that I really enjoy in any investigator, and particularly in the genre of mysteries and suspense.
Right. Okay. Now, between the FBI and the CIA, which one?
Now, that's a loaded question. I have all my friends are going to be watching this one keenly, I believe. I would pick the CIA, and I would pick that agency because I'm probably most familiar with it, and I appreciate the challenge and difficulties that engaging in their particular kind of work entails.
Right, I'm sure. Okay, now between the mountains and the sea, which would you choose?
I choose the mountains for obvious reasons. I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains of western North Carolina, and just love the ecosystem here. You can appreciate the diversity and wonder of nature. It's just grand.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now between Lewis Carroll and Enid Blyton, who would your choice be?
I'm sorry.
Lewis Carroll and Enid Blyton, whom would you pick?
Yeah. Oh, I'd have to pick Lewis Carroll. His work deals a lot with political satire, and I find that very, very fascinating, particularly for that time that he was writing, and it's actually applicable to our world today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, between novel and the short story, which would be your choice?
I would have to pick novel because I like to delve into a story in depth. A short story, I love them too, but I favor the novels because I can really take my time and think about it and imagine.
Right, fair enough. So this is quite a clincher, the final question. Between reading and writing, which would you choose?
I'll choose writing because it's a special kind of journey that you might have something in mind, a goal, but it's dynamic. It can change in the blink of an eye and take you somewhere that perhaps you've never been before, and that's really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. Fair enough. Thank you so much for that, and thank you so much for being a sport.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Nothing
Now,
like being put on the spot in a nice kind of way.
right. I'm glad you liked it. Now, moving on to your fantastic, fabulous first book. Congratulations on the huge success of Imagine That. It's
Thanks so much.
it's so beautiful. It's so evocative, and the illustrations are so fascinating. It's absolutely captivating. How involved were you with the illustration part of it?
Again, that's very interesting. I looked for an illustrator of course, to match up with the story, and my first choice actually had to turn me down because she was involved in another project and it was just consuming too much time. And another friend of mine recommended my illustrator Egli Bartolini from Italy. And Egli and I had to correspond by email. And the way we created the illustrations together, I would write out a detailed description of what I wanted for the illustration, and then she would create it from there. And you would think at a distance like that, and in that type of format, that there would be a lot of problems. The illustrations would not be right, but there were very few glitches, I'm pleased to say, and it really turned out well. Egli was wonderful. She had children of her own, and so she really could understand what I was looking for.
That's fantastic. Now, from being an intelligence officer, from being a special agent for the US government, to opting to write, and that to being an author of a children's fiction, how has this journey been?
Well, it feels very good to be at peace at this point in my life. I shall have to say, it just feels very good. I've gone way beyond my 9 lives, I believe, and I'm very grateful to be here. I'll just put it that way. I had no idea. Again, I mentioned earlier that being a writer and publishing a book and having different kinds of success with it, not only awards, but just all the good feelings associated with it, meeting great people like yourself, that I would just come to just enjoy it so much. It's just been fantastic.
That's lovely to hear. Now, how did you conceive Imagine That? What propelled this particular novel, and why children's fiction?
I was attending my granddaughter's 7th birthday party.
Right.
And of course, the parents were talking with each other, and the children were all having a good time. And all of a sudden, Rapunzel showed up.
Ah, okay.
And a wonderful young lady dressed in costume and the whole shot, and began to entertain the children. And I turned my attention away from talking with the other adults and just focused on the scenes developing before me. And the children were just enthralled by the story that Rapunzel was telling them. And I looked around at the big backyard and saw a couple of animals. There was a squirrel. There was even, and I was surprised, even during daylight, a deer had come to the bordering fence and was taking in the whole scene as well, and it was just magical. And you as a writer understand this, I'm very sure. Sometimes things just come to you. They just sort of appear in your consciousness. And what dawned on me that day was I should write a story for my granddaughter. I had no idea what I would write about, but the more I took in this scene, it just began to grow on me, and I thought, I'm going to write about this party and maybe expand upon that. And I had mentioned that sometimes when you begin writing, you don't know where that journey is going to take you. That was the case in writing this children's story. I began to write it, and it also sort of began to take on a life of its own, and ideas came to me, and characters and so forth. So I wrote the book over the course of about a year and a half, and almost 2 years, 2 years later, at my granddaughter's 9th birthday party, I presented her with the book.
Right.
And it was, to say it was a memorable scene would be a gross understatement.
I'm sure.
It just made that little girl of mine so happy. She has a poster that I had made up of the cover of the book, and it's displayed prominently in her room.
Right. Okay. What did she have
lovely.
to? That's fantastic. That's such a lovely story behind the story. Now, what did she say about the book after having read it? What is her response?
Well, she loved the story, and she identified with it. Of course, the main character is also named Evelyn, her name, and she just identified with it very strongly because she has a great love of the outdoors, especially likes to go outside in the evening and look at the night sky. She's enthralled by the stars and the planets, and that's sort of where the idea of, and when it's where the idea of seeing things and imagining things comes into play.
Fair enough. This has been the first book you have published, or have you written before this, or has this been first attempt?
I've never written before, Asha. This was my first attempt at writing anything formally. It's just been an amazing experience. There's no other way to describe it. I'm still somewhat dumbfounded by the twists and the turns and all the delights, and of course the hard work and applying yourself to get your work to publication.
Right.
So much involved.
True. So when do you write? What is your writing process like?
Ben Stevenson recently asked me, what my typical writing day would be, and my response was, I don't know what that is. I do not have a typical writing day. I write as the spirit moves me. One day I might decide, something comes to mind, and I'll sit down and write maybe for 15 minutes, or stare at that proverbial blank page for a time, and then walk away to come back later, or it may be for 2 hours. I write, again, as the spirit moves me, and it works for me.
That's lovely. So do you, or are you the type who used to observe children, watch them, and that's how it was easier for you to attempt a children's fiction?
I think to some extent that's been an advantage in that I've been a people watcher for a long time, again, for obvious reasons. I pay attention to detail. I listen well. And that day that I took in the birthday party scene
Right.
at my granddaughter's 7th birthday, I was able to see in my mind a lot of different things. Children's conversations, listening to those, seeing the delight on their faces, in a couple of instances, seeing a bit of maybe confusion or concern, different kinds of emotions. And I found that when I was writing the book, that I was really able to get inside the mind of actually inside the mind of my granddaughter,
Right.
as well as her parents, and put together what her reactions might be in certain situations, how she might respond verbally, and then how she might reflect back on a particular experience.
Right.
These types of things.
Did you have an inkling, or did you sense that the book would be so well received? Your very first book, and it's so well
I had no, I had absolutely no idea. Again, what I would be in for, and I had talked to another writer, uh, just right after my book was published.
Right.
And the question was, well, now what? Do we just wait and see what happens? And I remember this lady looking at me and just sort of shaking her head knowingly, and she said, "You don't know what you're in for." And she sensed, I think, at that time that the book was that my book would be well received. She really liked it, and I think she knew a lot more than even what she's told me up to now. But it's been there have been many wonderful surprises. I'm very grateful that the book has been so well received. I'm also very grateful to have gotten to know so many wonderful people through social media, and I'll just make a comment on that. I absolutely loathe the idea of going on social media. I'm a very private person.
Right.
I'm still a very private person, aside from social media. And I've just enjoyed particularly meeting authors and sharing ideas and finding out what are the main obstacles to their writing, what are the emotions involved in their writing, what type of goals they have beyond, let's just say, the particular work that they're concentrating on now. Just so many things, but the journey has to this point for me has just been fantastic, and I'm just so excited about what lies beyond. I'm working on another story now. It's not a children's book, although I have I'm contemplating a sequel to the Magic of the Mysterious Lights, and that's I think that's going to happen ultimately. But it's a real venture into the unknown, and again, I just find that extremely exciting and wondrous.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as you pointed out, yes, it's definitely possible to be on the social media and still be private. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's our choice to put out what we exactly want to, and how much you need to put out things, and then who are the kind of people you need to interact with. It's eventually our choice. And I find the writing community, as you pointed out, extremely helpful, informative, and there is so much discussion about the craft of writing, reading, publishing. Extremely useful, I would say.
It is indeed, and you learn a lot. Also, of course, a lot of time in social media seems to be devoted, at least for me, to relationship building. There's certain people that you identify and you seek out, and and you do establish a very nice relationship with, and that's comfortable. I found that I didn't expect it to be that comfortable,
True.
and I didn't expect to meet all the wonderful people and establish relationships with them that I have. But I look upon that as just a great gift. Um, just wonderful.
Fair enough. Now I read that your next book, your next novel, is going to be detective fiction. Not surprising.
It's no, not really detective. It's more of a suspense story, but it has a lot of elements in it. There's going to be something, I believe, for everyone. It's without giving too much away. I'll just say it's a very different kind of story.
Right.
Combines some elements that I think will be unexpected as the reader moves on through the story.
Fair enough. Now, how do you work when you're writing a book? In the sense, do you think up of the title? Did you think that you would call your first book Imagine That? Did you begin with the title and then go ahead and start writing the story, or did you complete it and then think up of the title? How did it go?
Yeah. For Imagine That, Magic of the Mysterious Lights, I actually developed the title close to the end of the story as I was writing. And I didn't envision the title right away and then write for the title. I didn't do that. And the same is true for the book I'm writing now. I don't have a title yet.
Okay.
And however, in process of writing, titles do come to you.
True.
And so I always have a notebook handy, whether I'm writing or whether I'm out in the forest, going for a nature walk or a hike, so that when things come to me, and it happens, you can write them down. You like that one because I think you do a lot of that. I can tell.
I do that.
Yeah, I can tell. But yes, on this one, a couple of titles have come to mind, but I think that I probably won't come up with a title again until the end of the story.
Right. Could I request you to do a book reading from Imagine That, your favorite section?
Oh, I'd be delighted to do that.
That's fantastic.
Hold on.
Let's do that.
I'd be delighted. On a night when the sky is full of stars, sometimes there appears light that cannot be explained, even by the smartest astronomers. We know about comets and asteroids, even shooting stars. We know what these are, and they can be explained. But there are flashes of light in the sky for which there is no name or explanation, and to this day they remain a mystery. However, not too long ago, a little girl discovered why she was able to see lights in the sky that no one else could see. Evelyn lived with her parents and brother in a house with a big backyard with lots of trees and plants. Deer, bunnies, foxes, and many birds came to visit, for the yard was a peaceful, safe place. She played in her yard every day and always had lots of fun. On nights when the sky was filled with brightly shining stars, Evelyn loved to go outside before bedtime. Often she could see the Milky Way and the Big Dipper. She wanted to learn all about the planets, stars, and constellations. And sometimes she saw flashes of light streaking across the night sky. One evening, Evelyn and her daddy were looking at the night sky. "Daddy, what are those flashes of light up there?" she asked. Evelyn pointed to the sky, so thrilled she was jumping up and down. Her daddy shook his head, baffled. "I do not see any flashes of light," he told Evelyn. "Are you sure you see them?" "But Daddy, I see them." "Come inside now, Evelyn. It's time for you to go to bed." Her daddy smiled at his daughter as he held her hand and they went inside. He loved her very much. Lying awake in her room that night, Evelyn made a promise to herself. She would find out more about the lights because she was a very determined girl. The next evening was beautiful. Stars were everywhere, and Evelyn could hardly wait to go outside. She opened the family room door and stepped onto the backyard patio, immediately feeling the coolness of the night air. Evelyn was so eager that she did not feel cold at all. There were more flashes across the sky than usual, and Evelyn wondered why that was happening. Suddenly, she heard her name being called. The voice was not coming from inside her house. It was gentle, calm. Evelyn looked all around but could not see anyone. She started to walk to the far end of her yard toward a stand of old spruce trees. The voice seemed to be coming from that direction. Evelyn? Evelyn? The voice became increasingly louder as she moved closer to the spruce.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I was transported to Evelyn's world.
Thank you.
It's lovely. And it's such beautiful imagery. Very redolent.
Thank you. Hopefully that, I think it attracted readers' attention, and they wanted to know, well, now what's going to happen? And the passages that I just read, one was part of it was the prelude to the book, and then launched into the beginning of the story. And it kind of sets the scene for what happens next.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What has been the best compliment you've got so far?
I think there have been many bests. I'm delighted to say one of the best ones was, in fact, I'm going to give you two. One was a little girl approaching me at a book reading, signing event, and she walked up to me, and I could see her coming from a little bit of a distance from where the audience had been sitting. And she had book in hand and holding it in front of her, and she walked up to me and had a smile on her face, and I just melted. And she said, "I love your book.
So
Will
sweet.
you please sign it for me?" And of course, I was, by that time, I was a puddle somewhere on the floor, and they had to resurrect me into life form again. It was just an astounding moment for me. I'll share another one. It actually came in the form of a review of the book on Amazon, and a lady wrote that she had purchased the book and had invited children next door to her to come join her and her children, and that she would read the story to them. And in the review, she remarked that how much they had enjoyed the story, and that it had given them hope. And I had the sense that, that the family next door and the lady's family had fallen upon hard times. And the fact that that they could enjoy the story and find hope in it. When I read it, it was very moving. In fact, telling you this now, I become emotional because, finding hope in my story, that meant everything to me.
Sure, that can be very touching. It's lovely. Was there anything that was challenging writing a children's book?
The most challenging thing I found was actually the pace of the story and keeping it flowing, so that the reader would not get stuck in any one place. I realized that as I started writing it, that one prominent goal should be to keep the story moving and keeping it interesting, advancing the story and advancing the characters in such a way that that it held their attention and they would keep posing the questions to themselves, what's next?
Absolutely. If you were to advise a new writer who is attempting children's fiction, what would that be?
Writing children's fiction. Well, even in a general sense, I would say to a new writer, this would be a new writer, you said?
A new writer, yes.
Okay. I would say, one, believe in yourself that you can do it. I think a lot of young writers particularly question, well, I'm such a novice, and there are all these experienced people out there. How am I going to do this? Can I do it? And those elements of self-doubt begin creeping in. And to dispel those, believe in yourself. That's what I would tell them at first. You have to believe in yourself before anybody else will believe in you.
Right.
The other thing I would offer to them is, and this is an ongoing thing, get experience in life. Avail yourself of the wisdom that's around you.
True.
And there's magic out there. There's wonder. Get in touch with your feelings. Think about things. Listen.
Right. Yeah, a very, very vital skill, isn't it? Listening. True. Yeah, that's very, very pertinent. How has your experience been with the whole promotion and publication of your work?
Well, I tell everybody that I'm just total rubbish when it comes to marketing.
Right.
And I admit that wholeheartedly. Fortunately, I've had some help along the way, and have gotten some very good advice. And as a result, one measure of success, I guess, are sales. And particularly before COVID, getting out and about I went to one convention that also had a book fair, and going to various book fairs, and also having reading and signing events. I found that through personal interaction, that which I love in that sense, I sold a lot of books. In fact, the first event that I held, it was an inaugural event after the book was published. It was a reading signing event and this is a classic, at a coffee shop.
Oh, wow.
I always laugh when I say that, because a coffee shop, of course. And the event went very well. It was attended also very well, even beyond what I imagined it would be. I was just pleasantly surprised that so many people showed up, even beyond those that I had invited. People brought their friends and their children, and then people just who had seen the announcement in the newspaper and heard it on the radio and so forth. People just, it was just a well-attended event. And I learned a lesson from it, though. Bring more books. I didn't have enough books, but I was able to think on my feet. Take worse. Engage the people that really wanted one. Get their names, their addresses, emails, whatever, and follow up. And that part turned out to be successful as well. But I have a ways to go. There are a number of things that I feel I can still do to sell more books, and I'm going to be embarking on those in the coming months. Maybe a book tour virtually and some other things I'm going to attempt. But again, that's one measure of success. Like every author, I love selling books, and the money is fine, but I get the greatest thrill out of, and we touched upon this just a bit ago, that little girl walking up to me and telling me that I love your book. If there's any measure of success, And people can look at success in so many different ways, and they can look at money, and they can look at unit volume, and they can look at a whole host of different things. But I think in terms of success, deciding to write a book in the first place, committing to it, and I would tell this to young writers, that's success in itself. If you've made that decision and you made that commitment and you're going to go for it. And of course, the other is another is actually publishing a book and getting it out there in the world, and hopefully people will enjoy it and value it and gain some type of insight, knowledge, if nothing more, just a wonderful experience reading it.
Yes.
I guess for me, it's those intangibles that provide me with the greatest rewards.
Absolutely.
Being a writer.
Absolutely.
And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that I can say I'm a writer, I'm an author. And for all of you writers and authors out there, embrace that. It's, I think, I don't want this to sound arrogant, but how can I frame this? I'll just say it. We writers and authors are special. We do something that provides readers everything from, and I'll go along a spectrum here, everything from an escape to, from something perhaps, to arriving at a particular destination that maybe you envisioned that and maybe you didn't.
True.
But it's special. It's as special as
Absolutely.
those of us who create those opportunities for our readers to experience.
Absolutely. I would agree with you. Just certainly writers and artists especially. Because while life writes the best stories, I think we pen it, we present it, we present those best stories in the best possible way that one can relate to. Obviously, that's a special talent.
Asha, along those lines and on that note, I think with all that you just said in mind, we have a special responsibility too.
True.
And I look, someone recently asked me, what do you value most being an author? And my response to that was, in effect, holding myself responsible to produce the best possible work that I can. And stories that bring people hope and joy and fuels their imagination, their aspirations, and also, and this one's one that's dear to my heart, as you well know, that that in some way profoundly affects their feelings about the natural world.
Right.
And this is something that this is a theme that, and I can say this without hesitation, that my readers will see themes of nature and wildlife and in all the works that I produce going forward.
Absolutely. In fact, that would have been my next question. Actually, I wanted to ask you. It seems so surreal. You've been an intelligence officer, but you live amidst nature, amidst serenity, and you adore birds.
Well,
Asha,
if you've experienced what I have, and without going into any detail about that, throughout the course of my professional career,
right.
I'm just very grateful at this time of my life to be in a very peaceful place where I can enjoy nature and where I can participate in things that uh, that preserve and protect it. And in my own way, I look for opportunities to make a difference in that realm. The natural world is very special, very rewarding, and if you take the time to pay attention to what's going on around you, it's one of the things my Native American grandmother taught me. I was very fortunate to be raised by her, and she taught me about herbal medicine and the ritual associated with it. She also spent a lot of time with me in the forest, teaching me about the magic that's there and how to listen, how to observe. Sort of, I think one of the terms that is used, how to be a good still stalker, how to be just completely quiet, rendering yourself invisible to that immediate environment and taking it all in. That was a special gift from her. She gave me many gifts. Excuse me, but that one was very special.
It's fantastic. I'm sure that held you in good stead in your chosen career, in your distinguished career as an intelligence officer.
It did indeed.
Right.
It did indeed.
Right.
Particularly certain skills like good intuition, powers of observation, being a good listener. And this may sound kind of strange, imagining yourself as being invisible. Whether you're in a crowd or whether you're at 3 a.m. in the morning on a still, quiet, dark street in Berlin, comes in handy.
That's very interesting. Speaking of which, would it be possible for you to share at least a couple of those exciting moments that you've had? I'm sure you've had several hair-raising moments, but then at least one or two that are very, very exciting, something that you can actually share with us.
Well, I think probably one of the most terrifying moments, and I won't use names or places or anything for this one, was it's what we call a CQB situation, close quarters battle. And it was the first time that I went into a building armed and facing the unknown of what might be waiting inside. And I wasn't alone. We had a team. And I was the first to go in. And I was what we call point. And I'll be totally honest. I was terrified. And the adrenaline was going. But I steeled myself in that situation by, and I've done this many times, by falling back on a lot of the wisdom that my grandmother imparted to me. And I'm kind of tying this together. But that particular situation turned out well, I will say, and but it was the first time that I'd been in that situation.
Wow.
and my mettle was tested, and there were more experienced officers with me at that time, and part of that operation. Right. And they they put me right up front. They said, you have to do it sometime, so it might as well be now.
Right.
And they felt I was prepared. I felt I was prepared. I did have that confidence, but I was terrified.
I'm sure. So it's not easy. I mean, especially when we read about this, we watch it on popular culture. It's part of the popular culture, but then I'm sure being in the thick of things, that's a completely different experience.
Reminds me of an old instructor I had going through a training school who said one of his favorite sayings was, "This ain't Hollywood."
Speaking of which, I want to ask you: have they at any point in time got it right, or is it the umpteen number of things that is dished out regarding Sikh service and all that? Do they get it right, or is it largely too fictitious, very far from reality?
I think that I'll make the distinction. I've noticed that now a lot of films and TV series have technical advisors.
Right.
And I think when they have technical advisors, the show is whether it be a movie or a TV series is more correct. There are not as many. I can't come up with very many criticisms or as many criticisms as one that has no technical advisor, and maybe the writers are people that have had absolutely no experience except what's in their imagination and also from what they've derived from watching other movies and TV series.
Right.
So one of the things that I think that is missing from films that I see, and I don't watch too many of them because I'd rather be reading about nature or reading historical fiction or something like that than watching espionage movies and film noir detective shows and that kind of thing. They don't interest me as much. But when I do, what seems lacking is originality, is sort of pushing beyond the envelope and coming up with something really, really novel, whether it be dialogue or whether it be a plot line or something like that. Too much of the same old, and not enough of innovation. And I've often thought that if I were put in the role of a technical advisor, that might be something that I could offer a show or a movie, is that I'd like to think that way. I mean, I started thinking that way as a child with my grandmother, and she encouraged that. And to this day, I still do. And I think that's, I'm kind of plugging myself here, and I didn't need to do that, but I'm offering it as an example of what I feel is really lacking in filmmaking, whether it be TV or the big screen today. Hopefully that makes some sense.
Absolutely. Fair enough. And yeah, that does throw a lot of light on what we are otherwise are habitually consuming and take it for real, which it is not actually. Now, has there been a particular skill or a quality that you have developed as a result of your long career as an intelligence officer?
I think that this is something that's really developed along the way, no matter at what point you are in your career. It's ongoing and it's evolving. Is judgment. Making judgment calls, and you make in the investigative intelligence world, you find yourself doing a lot of that, and much of it, of course, can be based on experience, empirical fact, intuition, that proverbial gut feeling, which again is developed through experience.
Interesting. Now, what is the one quality you think a person ought to have? Somebody who is aspiring to get into the intelligence, for instance. What is the one quality they need to must have?
A good one to begin with is powers of observation. Having the ability to really uh, look at any event or situation in detail.
Right.
It's a good start.
Right. Now, how much of your worldview and your writing has been impacted by your experiences in the intelligence?
Well, the world, certainly these days and for a while, it's been a very difficult, uh, too often violent, confusing, and I could just go on with so many negatives.
Right.
And one of the things that comes to mind, certainly in writing a children's story, is that you want to infuse hope. And in terms of imagination, uh, we all have that. It's inside us, and imagination is greater than knowledge. And what I would hope for in people in the world is that they get in touch with that more, because if you can imagine something, and particularly imagining something that will improve the lives of people, that will produce more joy, more hope. And I spoke about this just a bit ago. Innovation, inventing things that will improve people's lives. But I'll qualify that by saying that we'll also preserve and protect our natural world.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I have to throw in that caveat to be sure.
That's most crucial, isn't it? And especially in this pandemic year, it was a huge wake up call for all of us. We could see that nature has revived and sorted itself so beautifully while we were all huddled up inside.
Yes.
It doesn't need us.
Yes. Yes. And you hope for, because of the self-isolation that so many of us have experienced over this year plus time, that it's enabled people to, because they couldn't really go anywhere for such a long time, that it's enabled people to find meaning and joy in other things.
Right.
Kind of goes back to Viktor Frankl's book, Search for Meaning. It's existential in its approach, but I think is quite valid in terms of people questioning, well, it's those time-honored questions of, where did I come from, why am I here, and where am I going?
Right.
Some introspection along those lines is, particularly when you're sequestered away, is meaningful in its own right.
Fair enough. Who are your favorite writers?
My favorite writer?
Yes.
Oh, I really have enjoyed, and I've read his works, most of them several times, is Leon Uris.
Ah, okay.
In fact, as we speak, I'm finishing up Trinity for about the 6th time. It's one of my 3 favorite books, the other 2 being Atlas Shrugged and 7 Pillars of Wisdom by T.E. Lawrence.
Okay.
Those 3 books. But The Trinity is it's just rich. It's just a great story dating from the potato famine in Ireland, leading up to the Irish Rebellion. And Yuhasz is just a master storyteller. Just great.
Right. And any special message to viewers of the Writer Talks? That would be my final question to you. Any special message to the viewers of Writer Talks?
What I'd like to share for other writers. I'll just go back to believe in yourself. Believe in yourself and avail yourself to all the wisdom and magic that is all around you. Listen not only to other authors and writers, but just to anyone that has something to offer in way of opinion or idea. And it's just a great way to improve your skills as a writer going forward, and to learn and grow as a person.
Right. Thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time. It's been an absolute delight talking to you, George.
Well, you're very kind, Asha, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in your program. I've enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Thank you, and all the best to your upcoming book, the sequel, and the new suspense novel that you're in the process of writing. Good luck with that, and hope to see you back on the Writer Talk soon.
Oh, thank you very much. It would be my pleasure to come back. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great
All the best to you, Asha.
Ahoy.
Bye-bye.
See you.